watching to maybe learn a thing or two about Chiswick and the area forums. You're welcome, and I hope you can pass this on to your parts of the area of the borough. Many of you were able to speak with some of the stakeholders this evening, and hopefully you received some useful information and advice. And as is now after 7:30, we'll move to the formal part of the meeting. Before I do that, just a quick couple of announcements. As you know, some of you might be aware, yesterday was Commonwealth Day. I took a small quick trip to Downing Street to discuss how the Commonwealth can work best for all 56 nations. And that was quite a very productive meeting, and hopefully we can move forward in a new way with the King at the helm. And also last week was International Women's Day, and I would like to acknowledge our councillors, female councillors who are here. The government has done a great deal of work to promote things such as equal pay, and I would like to acknowledge Councillor Giles, who has raised on numerous occasions items about equal pay at the council, or fair pay at the council. And on that note, I also want to welcome, she's not here, but a new councillor was elected on Thursday at Heston West, and I'd like to congratulate formally from the chair to Councillor Sidhu, who will be sitting with us at the next Chiswick, or the next Borough Council. So Councillor Sidhu, representing the Labour Party, congratulations to her. Now, on the agenda tonight, we'll be discussing policing, housing, and fostering. And obviously, the government has done a great deal to try and support these areas, and we're looking to see how we can be better positioned to prioritize those items and be more focused as a borough. And of course, starting here at Chiswick Area Forum, and I hope that those items are extended to other forums as well as we go forward. So please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available for the viewing of Hounslow Council's YouTube page in the coming days. By way of this meeting, the way this meeting will work is that I, as a chair, will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. We'll then have some items on the agenda that will endeavour allow more people to speak, and as many of them as possible will be invited to speak. And with that in mind, I will ask members of the public to wait their turn and not interrupt people when they are talking. I also ask people in the audience not to comment during contributions of others. As we have a large number of people present already, it may, of course, not be possible for everyone here to ask questions, given the time constraints. Therefore, there is an evaluation forms on your seats available, and there's a box on the back of that sheet where you can write down a question and provide your email address, and we will respond to you directly if your question is not answered. A member of the office team will be able to pick that off you later. Please do use the sheets to submit any unanswered questions and hand them to those officers. They're called the Community Development Officers. And so, without further ado, I would like to invite PC Brodie Duncan and Jim Cope, Sergeant Jim Cope. Thank you. Before I go any further, any declarations of interest from the table? Great. So now I would like to invite PC Brodie Duncan and Sergeant Jim Cope to present a local police update.
Good evening, everyone. Is that on? I'm Sergeant Jim Cope. I've recently been appointed the new ward sergeant for the 3 Chiswick wards, so Riverside, Gunnersbury, and Homefields. I'm being taken over from Sergeant Sean Linebear, who retired, and currently I'm still based over in Hounslow, but will eventually come over to work out of the Acton Police Station. Your current ward officers at the moment, we've got PC Sam Allo, who will be covering the Homefields ward. Kane Grist has been taking over the Gunnersbury ward, supported by Cheryl. Sally is over with Sam, and we have David Manning, PCSO, covering the Riverside ward. Currently the inspectors are Inspector Anil Sharma and Actor Inspector Mike Binns, and our community safety lead is Ishita Sarkar. We've got the ward priorities for Homefields is violence against women and girls and ASB, burglary residential, theft from motor vehicle. Over in Riverside, once again it's violence against women and girls and antisocial behaviour, burglary, theft from motor vehicle. And over in Gunnersbury, it's violence against women and girls, vagrancy, theft from motor vehicle, and theft of pedal cycle. The teams have been doing as much as they possibly can in the area. They've been carrying out high visibility patrols, plain clothes, and particularly in the hotspot areas. I've got PC Duncan with me, who covers the Hounslow and Hounslow East and Hounslow Central, but is also our main SPOC for violence against women and girls, and she'll be giving an input once I've completed the report. Of note, since the last period, there was a significant amount of robbery that occurred outside Chiswick Tube Station. There was approximately 3 or 4 robberies that occurred, but I'm pleased to say that a number of 3 were arrested for those offences that were causing a linked series of crimes in that area. And as a result of proactive work by the Safer Neighbourhood team, also our crime squad, and a quick response from the emergency response team, following one of the robberies, 3 suspects were arrested, and they're currently under investigation from our criminal investigation department. Since September, there's been a number of engagements of Coffee with a Copper, street briefings, nursery visits, working at the local primary school, and a number of walk and talk events. And hopefully I will be moving them forward as well when we finally get the ball rolling. I'll hand you over to PC Nicola Brody, who will now tell you about what we're doing about Street Safe and other activities around violence against women and girls.
Hello everyone, I'm PC Brodie Duncan. I am the SPOC for Violence Against Women and Girls, specifically the Walk and Talk scheme and Street Safe. I have spoken to a lot of you tonight already about Street Safe, so I'll give a brief explanation into what that is. But first of all, we have the Walk and Talk scheme, and this is essentially an opportunity for women and girls to meet with female officers, walk about the ward and discuss issues relating to their safety. It's been very well received. They're usually promoted through OWL or Twitter, and each ward will hold a walk and talk. Every so often, we have reactive walk and talks. So when a specific incident has occurred relating to violence against women and girls, there will be a walk and talk organised so they can express their concerns and issues. And then we also have proactive ones which will be held in due course. So you can find all the information about that through OWL. You can also contact your ward officers if it's something that you'd be interested in attending, and we can look to specifically organise that. Next, we have Street Safe. So this is also a very useful tool in tackling violence against women and girls. It's essentially a website. You can look it up on Google. There's also a QR code that I've handed out, and it essentially allows you to report areas where you feel unsafe or have felt unsafe. So this could be an environmental reason, such as a lack of street lighting, a lack of CCTV, derelict buildings, shrubbery, and you can also report social reasons that you feel unsafe. And that could be far and beyond antisocial behaviour or feeling like you've been followed somewhere. But I must reiterate, it's not a tool to actually report crime. Go through your usual channels of 999 and 101 or online. It's simply to tell us areas where you feel unsafe. So I'll hand out some more QR codes and leaflets about that when you're done. And yeah, just finally with the Street Safe, we can actually look at the data that's been inputted by you, and we can use that to sort of levitate more action in terms of crime prevention. Okay, so I'm open to any questions later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I will go to one of the councillors. Okay, can I go to the audience? Councillor Giles first, and then any member of the audience that would like to contribute as well. Councillor Giles.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sergeant Cope, thank you for joining us this evening, and welcome to Chiswick. I think we met before Christmas, so it's nice to see a familiar face. Just to clarify, the report that we had was, and just to make sure that everybody here is aware, you mentioned that there was an event at Chiswick Tube Station. Could you confirm if that's Chiswick Park, please? Oh.
Yes, it was Chiswick Park Tube Station.
We're going to play tag on this one today. Thank you very much. And in Riverside, we're still missing a PC. Do you have any idea when we might be getting a new one?
I don't, I'm afraid. We've got David Manning, obviously the PCSO. He's covering Riverside on his own at the moment, and obviously Sam and Kane are supporting him when he needs police support. So there's a lot of crossover, and I'm sure obviously a lot of councillors here have heard this before from me at the Brentford and Isleworth Forum about how much flexing we have to do at the moment. We do our very best in terms of we'll support David, but as soon as I hear any news in terms of getting an officer onto Riverside, I'll be welcome. I will tell you.
Thank you very much, and for the record, David's doing a great job in his new role. Sorry, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I don't want to take all the airtime. So it's great to know that you've had the coffee with a copper, and understanding that you're doing the walk and talks to promote Street Safe, and we've got some great data for Chiswick on areas that need a bit of attention. Just to ask, where are your Coffee with a Copper events promoted so that the wider public can know about these events? And what are the Twitter handles that you use?
So with regards to advertising, it's mainly predominantly on OWL. We will pass on to maybe the community. It's called OWL. I've got a leaflet. Shall I hand it to you? And then, it's an online app. You can download it onto your phone, and then you just type in your postcode. It will give you the exact location for what ward you will be under, and then any messages from that ward, whether or not it's crime prevention advice, whether or not it's alerting to you of a specific crime that's happened in the area, or an event such as Coffee with a Copper, or an event that we're going to be in attendance. That is where to find it. With regards to the Twitter handles, I will get that for you. I know they recently changed as a result of the ward boundary changes, so I'm not familiar with the ones in Chiswick as yet. Should be, but.
Thank you, Sergeant. Just as a point of information, the OWL app is available from the App Store, and you can download it. There's also a web-based platform that you can use. Unfortunately, this might need to be something I need to report back. I put in my home postcode and I'm in the wrong ward. But what I would suggest is that you go onto it and sign up for the alerts, because there will be a survey that's issued every quarter where you can help to outline what the ward priorities are for the neighbourhood police panels. So it's a really useful resource, and it's very, I'd say there's some issues with accessibility, but it's very simple and straightforward to use.
Thank you very much. Can we have that question from the audience, please?
Hello. Oh, good evening. Thank you very much. Ruth Mayorkas, Burlington Road. Nice to see you back, Jim. Speeding is a big issue in Chiswick. Wellesley Road especially. Drivers come along there very fast and something really needs to be done, please. Also ASLs, not everyone knows what they are. They're called advanced stop lines. They are specifically for the people who cycle to be safe, to be able to get ahead at traffic lights. No drivers are obeying them currently, especially Heathfield Terrace, Turnham Green, places like that. So I'd really like you to turn your attention to that, please. And it's great to hear that you're going to tackle pedal cycle theft, because I think there's a lot more than you know across the whole borough. So thank you very much. And with OWL, just to say to people here, I'm the WhatsApp neighbourhood lead for my road, and I get it, and then I disseminate it to the rest of the road. So that's quite useful as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, obviously, I was here a couple of years ago when I first started on Wesley Road. We did hold a number of speed awareness days down there in terms of, because obviously it's a 20-mile-an-hour zone, and obviously there's no other restrictions down there. So I will bear that in mind for Wellesley Road. For me, in terms of like the theft of motor vehicles and also the cycle crime, I think for me they go hand in hand. Obviously, cyclists do, criminals do use bikes to go around and commit motor vehicle crime. We can carry out in the same breadth in terms of speeding about the ASLs. Are you looking at mainly on the Chiswick High Road ASLs, or is there one particular that are Heathfield Terrace? Okay, I'll right, yeah.
And we also need enforcement on Heathfield Terrace School. Heathfield Terrace School, I know it's a council issue, but it's also about blocking a safe way to get along the road. And the parents sit there at 3:30, blocking the road while they're picking up their children. So we need some enforcement, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Yeah, that's fine. We'll take a look at that. You've got my email and you know where to get me. Thank you.
Can we, one more question there, and then we'll come back to the councillors here on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got one more. Okay. Gary.
Hi. Pamela Mayorkas. This is not a combine. Wavendon Avenue. Hi. There are people here who probably know more about this than I do, but there have been a number of burglaries, house break-ins in Wavendon Avenue in the last 6 to 9 months, I would say. A number of vehicle thefts in Wavendon Avenue. My car had its catalytic converter taken, and it was only because a neighbour on the opposite side of the road notified the police. So I came out of my front door at about midnight when I was putting out the recycling to be confronted by 2 of your colleagues to say, are you Pamela Mayorkas? You've had your catalytic converter stolen. And so there's been a lot of that going on as well. I know the reasons, but we don't have people on the beat anymore. Being in a car, a police car driving around, is not going to help you spot break-ins at the back of a house, vehicles being stolen, or catalytic converters being taken. So
Thank you very much. Very good points. But guys, can we, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, could we try and be brief with our questions so we can get through as many as we can? So no statements, quick questions if we can. Thank you. Sergeant Cope.
Yeah, no, it's, I think, Bob is on the beat is always the way forward. In my eyes, I've been in the job 25 years and I started walking the beat. And, for me, that we need to go back to basics. All being well, under the Commissioner's new plan, we will be seeing an influx of neighbourhood policing officers on our wards again. And for me, then that will mean that we will have the visibility, the presence, and the community officer that we're looking for. But I will have a look at those locations and see what we can do around there. Okay.
Thank you, Sergeant Cope. Councillor Bidoff. Sorry, Councillor Todd.
Jim, if I can call you Jim. Your welfare is terribly important to us. And if you're a football team, you'd never put a team out because you're never up to strength, are you? But can I be more positive than
We
that?
can't
Sort of
hear.
sarcastic comment. Well, I can hear, yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was a suggestion, you're still based in Acton. Where are you based now then?
He's not.
Well, okay, my home field ward.
You need to turn off the mic.
No, at the moment, I'm based out of Hounslow. With Sean Lybear retiring, obviously I've been asked to take over looking after the Chiswick boards, but I'm still managing Brentford East and West, Ostley, Sign and Brentford Lock at the moment, on top of them three. And if you want, I can throw in Heston Central and Heston West as well to boot. Yeah. So in terms of sergeants, we are short.
Suggestion by one of my colleagues, so I can work this, but it's not playing ball, that you use a shed in the fire station as temporary accommodation. What's happened to that?
Before Sean left, because obviously was looking after his officers when he was on annual leave. I was always looking, so obviously I've been aware of the fact that they've been looking for alternative locations on Chiswick. He said the last time that I spoke to him that he hadn't been hearing any none the wiser on where that was moving forward or not. And that was something certainly that when I get to Acton, we'll be reigniting and seeing what we can do.
You're a tri-borough now. Is it correct that the force has appointed 3 superintendents to that tri-borough?
Yes. For each Ealing, Uxbridge and Hounslow.
So that's a very interesting priority, isn't it? Okay, thanks very much.
I'd probably say it's a top-down approach, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we get to the lady at the front? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thanks. This is just a very quick comment. I'm in Homefields ward over in Staveley Gardens, and I don't know whether I've had my head in the sand, but I never seem to hear very much about local policing in the area that we're in, and any events. Everything is very centrally based in Chiswick. I also know a lot of people who are not internet connected. So again, you know, posters or leaflets would be useful. And I don't know whether you might, or perhaps you have had some sort of event like this coffee thing, which I'd never heard of, over on our side of Chiswick, because I do think we are sometimes left out. Thank you.
I will take that away with for Sally and Sam, but thank you.
We'll take one more question from the audience there, or have we got 2 more? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. One of the problems in Chiswick High Road that's been going on for the last couple of years is that it's become the Wild West with regard to cycles and cyclists cycling over the pavements. A lot of delivery cyclists, they're just all over the place. It's really dangerous. And also, many cyclists cycling either on the road or in the cycle lane completely ignore the red lights. They're cycling all over the zebra crossings, they're going through the red lights. It is so incredibly dangerous. What is going to be done about it in order to regulate it?
Well, obviously, if any of my officers see any sort of traffic offences being committed, then I expect them to deal with it. I appreciate, obviously, the high street has got the cycle lane. There is a lot of pedestrian, vehicle and cycle activity along the high street, which shows what a bustly high street it is. What I can do is, obviously, I can start looking into it. I can start looking around and seeing what incidents and what reports we are getting about the cycling. And we can, like I say, we can tie that in with our activities around theft from motor vehicle, cycle theft, and also, obviously, any antisocial behaviour that may be being caused. Okay.
But that doesn't really explain what can be done about it.
Well, I mean, I can do some cycle patrols down there myself. You know, some of the officers are cycle trained, so visibility can have an impact. Having a word with the riders outside the specific takeaways, if there's any that are causing an issue?
Well, most of them are, a lot of them are cycling on the pavement, but it's not just Deliveroo with regard to completely ignoring red lights. It's many, many cyclists.
Yeah.
You've only got to stand at any of the junctions with traffic lights. They're going through all the time and also going through the zebra crossings. It's lethal. So what can be done?
Well,
Without
as I say,
police
we can
presence,
also do the visibility presence and also enforcement.
Yeah.
But then, we could say exactly the same about motorists. Motorists commit...
No, I disagree there.
Well,
no, it's extraordinary. If you actually went to Chiswick High Road and stood on the corner of Duke's Avenue and the traffic lights there, it's absolutely shocking. They are cycling just past pedestrians whilst they're on zebra crossings and on the Green Man. It's unbelievable. Yeah. All of them. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I take, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I take that point. I do take that point, but there isn't a question there. But one thing I do know for a fact is that obviously the government has given £1.1 billion in funding for police force, and of course they're almost there in recruiting 20,000 police officers. But obviously we need to know how that reflects locally, whether that will be in police numbers, and I know you're working actively behind the scenes to get those numbers on the beat in our areas. But I think the one question that was raised, one point that was made is about visibility, which you also raised. We need to be as visible as we can, despite having a very skeleton police force. But I also want to make sure that we focus not on the victims on this one. I think we need to also be very tough on the perpetrators of crime. And I think far too many times it seems as though it's the victim's fault, and it isn't. But I know you're kind of strapped for resources at the moment, but we're almost there. So is there anything else, following on to what the lady has just said, that we could do, despite having, at the moment, a skeleton team, to be more visible?
Well, obviously we're just going to have to flex a lot more, and utilise any support that we can get, whether or not it's from the Safer Transport team in terms of challenging the cycling, driving, speeding, all the issues that you've all mentioned. It will be for me to actually find other partners to come and support us. As I say, Safer Transport, whether or not the traffic officers, that kind of thing. We can just sort of get them to come down, and then we will do the bare bones in terms of the consistency down on these areas that you raise, and the long-term strategy. We can then start looking at it once the officer numbers increase.
Councillor Giles, you had something to add to that.
Apologies. If you really want to have a say in police priorities, the Met Police have issued a consultation that started on the 20th of January, but it closes on Friday, and it's all to do with the Met Commissioner's turnaround plan for 23 and 25, and the objectives there are to improve policing, have a better kind of local police visibility, but it's about rebuilding trust in the police and reducing crime. And so I would really, truly encourage you to just Google Met Police turnaround plan. Have a look at what the 9 priorities are, what Richard was saying, 51 objectives and outcomes that are coming out as a result of it. Just to have a look at what is happening with policing in London, but also being able to have a voice and add it to, say, those priorities. I'd also definitely say sign up to OWL and manage it that way, because unless all of us here know about your concerns, we can't help to address them.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Bidoff, and then Sergeant Cope, if you can finish off the last remarks. Thank you. Councillor Bidoff.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just start by thanking you for responding to the stabbing incident in Park Place. It may not have been you personally, but there was an almost instant police presence. So thank you very much for that. It was very I am practically direct into the mic. Sorry. Okay. So just starting off, thanking you for responding to the stabbing incident in Park Place in Gunnersbury. It was very unsettling for the local residents, and I know it had nothing to do with local residents, but the instant police presence was much appreciated. You mentioned the flexing, and we heard about that at our first police and crime meeting, I think, when the new plan was coming in. And of course, it's very good to know that people can be flexed in, but equally they can be flexed out, and that will be worrying to residents. Long-term plan, more policing is good, but in the meantime, flexing out isn't very good. Just want to reassure residents to some extent that although teams are down, we're very lucky in Chiswick that they all work across Chiswick. So you're just as likely to see a PC from Chiswick Gunnersbury in the home fields area as you are in Gunnersbury. So they work very cooperatively, and I find that very useful. Obviously, it'd be better when we have full teams. This is more information for them, really. One question, though, is about lighting. I think it was the first meeting that we held on policing and crime, the then Tri-Borough commander came and said he'd looked around beforehand, it was held in the evening, and thought that the lighting was too low and that was an instant fix. Since then, or it might have been just before then, we've had dimming and trimming of lights, so the lighting level has come down twice and the hours that the lights are on has been reduced. What's your view on that? We think lighting should go up. Is that what the police still think?
Obviously, lighting, I'm what they call an ex-design out-crime officer, so lighting was part of the strategy in terms of environmental design and change. So yes, sometimes constant low-level lighting can have more of an impact in terms of in reducing of crime and obviously making an area feel safer, but it needs to be in conjunction with maybe specific areas. So if you're walking from point A to B, you don't want any interruptions of lighting. It needs to be constant through, say, like an alleyway. You want to see the other end of that alleyway. Also, you don't want to have any breaks in that alleyway where the lighting could allow someone to be concealed. So obviously, in some locations, say like if you don't want someone to walk through a park at night, then no lighting, because it makes it less favourable to walk the most safest route around the park, where there's better lighting, and also you're reducing the risk for people to actually commit a crime. It is a case-to-case basis. There's sometimes where lighting can be affected by trees, say for instance, or tree canopies could be blocking it out and making it less. I certainly would say that lighting is for the better, but it has to be treated on a case-to-case basis and location-wise.
Can I just come back on that for a second? I think residents will find that very disappointing because they would like better lighting. For example, crossing Turnham Green at night is a route to so many houses, and to go the long way around is going to be unsettling for them.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, then yes, if it's a direct route through the park, then you're better off having more lighting. The idea is if you're encouraging people to use a location, you don't want it to be, but encouraging people to use it in a safe way will actually disperse the crime because more people are using it at the correct times.
Sergeant Cope, thank you very much, and Sergeant PC Duncan, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, guys. All right, we'll close that now, and we'll move on to the agenda item 3, Hounslow Housing Estates and Improvement Update. But before, as the PC and Sergeant clear the chair there, just to say that during the pre-meeting, we've just had the cost of living marketplace store that was here, and they're advertising that on Friday, is it Friday? On Wednesday, at Duke's Meadow Community Centre, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., there will be a cost of living marketplace where residents can have a non-judgmental chat with council housing officers and partners from the voluntary sector. It's really worthwhile for those who are watching at home, who can drop in on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. So we now move on to agenda item 3, as I said, which is an update from officers on the housing estate team, and I would like to invite Oksana Stratton Miguel Ray and Ibrahim Zahidi to present an update about the estates. Could you please come forward?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Oksana Stratton. I'm Housing and Tenancy Service Manager, and Chiswick is under my portfolio, so I'm overseeing the whole of the Chiswick. Oksana Stratton. Yes, thank you. And I have with me this evening Joanna Emilianovic, which is one of the new tenancy services officer, who she will be covering a part of Chiswick, mainly Alexandra Garden, Adenza Garden, Staveley Gardens. I also have Ibrahim Zahid, which is the assistant service manager, and he managed Chiswick alongside of myself. And then I've got the estate improvement officer, Miguel Ree, who managed the whole of the Chiswick. So from housing and tenancy services update, as many of you may have been aware, because we have been communicated with our residents in regards to the major transformation which took place back in March and April last year within the housing services. Since the transformation, we went through a major recruitment, and we are pleased to advise that we have now almost complete the recruitment process. So we have officers in place to manage the whole of the areas which we cover. In terms of the us being...
Sorry, I'm really sorry, people can't hear you, so I'm
Really?
use that one. Yeah, it's not you.
I'm so sorry. Please try that mic. Okay, is that better? Is it? I'm not sure. Oh, can you hear me?
Is it on? Yeah.
No.
Gary.
Okay.
One sec. Gary, put the mic on.
Further. Okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. This one? Yeah, use that one. Okay, let me stand up. There we go, go on. Sorry.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah. So, as many of you are aware, we've communicated to all of our residents. We have now opened estate offices, which operates from 9 to 5. We open for all of the residents to come and see us face to face, or arrange an appointment, or ask us to come and visit you at your home. Specifically for Chiswick area, we have location in Hogarth Estate, is Flaxman House, where officers are there 9 to 5. We have estate enforcement officers, which come and join us in the office every single Tuesday. So should you wish to meet with an estate enforcement and discuss certain concerns within your area or your estate, please come along and meet them. We also have present at the estate offices tenancy sustainment team, which helps most vulnerable tenants with assistance to signpost them to different services, to get help, seek financial advice, and address many other concerns in regards to how to sustain the tenancy. In regards to the estate improvements, as part of the transformation, a new team has been created, which is dedicated to the uplifting the face of our estates. So the estate improvement for Chiswick area is Miguel Ree, which I will pass it to Miguel because he's got very excited updates for all of you. So I will let Miguel speak.
Good evening. So my name is Miguel, and I'm the Estate Improvement Officer for Chiswick. So part of my duties include visiting Part of my duties include visiting estates periodically, so I'll come around every 3 months to have a walk around, to have carry out an estate inspection. That this can be done with residents or councillors to see what the general upkeep of the estate is and to pick up any sort of maintenance issues that need to be addressed. But overall, the job also entails of coming up with ideas of improving estates. To this end, there's 8 estate improvement officers throughout Hounslow, and we've all got different areas of responsibility. So we're working on delivering improvements in some of the larger objectives, such as bike shelters, for instance. And this is going to be done in one piece across the borough. So we have different leads that will prioritise different areas of improvements. So the different areas that we currently lead on are things like electrical vehicle charging points, land reappropriation, where some areas on estates are not being utilised. We can try to repurpose it for different uses to benefit residents. This could be, for instance, drying areas that are not being used. Maybe we can build secure rooms for bikes, for instance. We are working on bike storage to try and deliver secure bike shelters across estates. So we're currently identifying different areas which would be prioritised over the next 2 years to deliver secure bike shelters. Waste management, we're currently shutting all high-rise chutes across the borough. So we've begun to put secure waste shelters on quite a lot of the estates. Examples of this is in Hogarth, where we're doing it in Hamilton, Kent House, Thornycroft. We're also planning to move to do a similar project in Denzer Gardens. We've started on Alexander Road, and we're waiting for quotes for Montgomery Court. So we are moving at pace with some of our objectives. We also prioritising things like signage, mobility scooter storage, to see whether or not we need to improve some of the access to residents on estates. Play areas, so one of the estate improvement officers is leading on looking at which play areas need to be prioritised, where we need new play areas on estates, to make sure that money is being spread out across the borough. Block security, things like door entry, and we're having a plan to spend 800,000 over the next 2 years on both installing new door entry systems as well as keeping the existing ones in better working condition. And also things like pathways and fencing and parking on estates. So those are the lead areas that estate improvement officers are going to be concentrating on to deliver larger projects. However, we're working on suggestions from residents and other services that visit estates. So I'm always accessible for people to discuss any ideas which they think would be beneficial for their estate. So we can look to see how we can deliver these.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. We will now try to take some questions from the audiences, but before we do, I just want to double check quickly first with the councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Just a very quick one. I know when I was Turnham Green as was councillor, most of the issues that were raised, housing related, weren't the estates that you've been talking about. It's more the standalone houses, the blocks, the flats, and there are a lot of those in Chiswick. Sometimes it's possible to walk around. I mean, you can walk around and not know they're there. On most of the roads, there are council properties. So in terms of those 3 monthly inspections and all the rest of it, do they get a fair crack of the whip?
So yes, so the housing stock in Chiswick is quite spread. So this does include other there's a lot of street properties that are broken down into 5, 7 flats, 10 flats. An example of this is Bolton Road, which is literally riddled with them. So yes, we would be visiting, well, I would be visiting them regularly. it's not just for those properties. So because my number is widely accessible, residents will call me on to discuss a number of issues. And even if they're not on an estate inspection schedule, if a resident calls me and said, I've got an issue, I'm quite happy to go and visit, to have a look to see what needs to be done. So I'm quite flexible. An example is resident bought a lease to a property. Unfortunately, we blocked out their water meter because of our fire regulations. We've shut certain areas. So I visit the property every so often to provide access, but this was because the resident contacted me, made me aware of the issue. I went to visit the property, which I wouldn't normally visit, but I'm very flexible, and I'm based in Flaxman office, so I'm very local.
Councillor Bidoff. Oh, sorry. Councillor Bidoff.
Thank you. I was trying to let Jack go first. Thank you very much indeed to the team. You'll know what I'm going to raise because I was talking about it earlier, one of the issues anyway, and that is the security door at Glebe Close, which is taking an awful long time to get fixed. Also, I gather that drug dealing is back at Tomlinson Close, so we need to look at that. You're very good at picking up on issues and reporting them and sending us lists. I've been out on several housing inspections with you and obviously have a lot to deal with Oksana as well. You're let down by the follow-up, which is very, very slow. What can we as councillors do to help you speed that up? Because you say you've got more money. How do we get it to be spent quickly on getting the security doors put in, the drug dealers taken out? What can we do to help you?
It's an interesting question. In terms of the block security, this wouldn't be coming from the improvement budget. So I think for next financial year, the improvement budget stands at 1.2 million across the entire borough for different areas. For things like door entry security, that would come from a different budget, from the bigger HRA budget, not this one specifically. But yes, so there is money there to spend, but I simply wouldn't know what's. Because I've spoken to John recently regarding the doors in Glebe Close, and he's waiting for quotes from Alpha Track and start dates, so he's waiting, because there's no point doing the two side doors while the middle door is left open. So he's trying to tackle all three doors at the same time. Because the main door needs to be all connected to different flats and the door entry system fully installed there, that's delaying the issue. But he is progressing with it in terms of speeding it up. I know it's been very slow. I know.
We're very willing to help chase, so let us know who we should be chasing and we'll do it.
Oh, can you hear me? Yes, I am very well aware of, in regards to the Glebe Close security, and I do know that it's been dragged for quite a while, but I think we at the point where hopefully now is the last what we're waiting on. So in terms of escalation, you've escalated today, so we will come back with a response in regards to where we are with it. And in regards to the second questions, to the drug dealings at Tomlinson Close, yes, that's been reported to us, and we're currently working with the policing team, Hounslow policing team, and also with our antisocial behaviour team. I am pleased to I'm pleased to advise that we have full ASB team at the moment. We had a bit of discrepancy there because we were short-staffed, but we are fully staffed. We have a dedicated officer who is concentrated on the Chiswick area, and we are going to be working very closely with them, including enforcement team, to try and to tackle the issue. But I think the ASB at Tomlinson, it was just recently reported, which we've picked that up, and we will come back with an update.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? I think. Okay, my name's Christine Godwin. I live in Gunnersbury Close, which is in Chiswick. You used an interesting word earlier, or an interesting phrase. You talked about repurposing different areas that were under use or perhaps not fully put to good use. I'm rather confused because we had a car park that was very, very well used. We've also had a quite massive rent increase, and we know that we can no longer use our car park, but we weren't consulted about this. So we've lost our parking area with no explanation, and we have a block of flats or something like that for some new residents to come in to that area where we parked our cars. What I'd be really interested to find out about is where do we park our cars now? Thank you.
So unfortunately, I was not aware that this was being carried out. When I contacted the planning team, they said that this went to planning several years ago, and it was all approved in planning. The council has sold the land for the development, so it's no longer council property. This includes the land. So this has been, I've subsequently gone online to check the application process, and it's all there, it's all open access, anyone can access the information, going back several years from the initial consultation to when it was approved in planning. In regards to where you can park now, you'd have to apply for a parking permit, and because when this planning was carried out, they did checks to make sure that there would be sufficient areas in the CPZ surrounding Gunnersbury Close to absorb this. Now, I don't know if that's factual or not, but it was part of the planning process.
Thank you. When we signed our rent agreements, which I know we can't change, but the council can, which is kind of a bit biased, we didn't know that the terms and conditions, i.e. the parking, was going to be removed. We weren't consulted as residents. We were just told it was a fait accompli in that sense. So now you're saying that we need to apply for parking permits, but our rent has increased, and have we got a different contract then? I mean, perhaps our rent should be decreased so that we can afford to pay for parking?
That's fine, but your rental agreement, the rental agreement does not include parking. So your rental agreement has no element which charges you for parking.
Okay, thank you.
And just also to add to that, the agreement which you had with the council is work both ways, so neither do we can change it without consulting you, or same vice versa. So, and as Miguel mentioned, parking is not part of the tenancy agreement which you hold with the council. So parking, it will always subject to change. It could be CPZ, it could be in estate parking. It depends of what's happened in the bigger picture. And the rent increase, it's something which is across UK. The rent increase every April as part of the rent increase. Sorry.
Thank you, thank you. The rent increase also goes along the council tax increase, which I think we've fought hard to try and stop, but unfortunately we've voted down. Councillor Jack Elmsley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid it's another security door question. Miguel, we've spoken about this before. Manor Gardens, they've been waiting for a security door, I think, for several years now. Obviously, I raised it about 6 months ago, and they're still waiting. Why is there such a long lead time on security doors? You touched on it earlier, but 6 months is a long time and counting. And what can residents do whilst they're waiting to make sure that they do feel safe? Because there are a lot of residents, and we've raised that before, who do feel worried that their security door doesn't work. We spoke earlier about antisocial behaviour, about drug dealing. They're concerned that that can now be effectively on their doorstep. How can they prevent that without a security door?
Yes, I mean, Manor Gardens is not a case of installing a new system in. It is just the delays, because it was Andy Foreman that deals with the electrical engineering side of repairs. He said that unfortunately, in order to commission the door to put into Manor Gardens, it does take a certain amount of time. So that's why we asked the estate enforcement team to speed up, to step up patrols to ensure that residents feel safe in Manor Gardens. I mean, I haven't received any reports from the policing team to say that there's been any incidents of any kind since, but I do understand that you know that there is a delay, because I think he did say it was going to take roughly 3 months to get the door fully commissioned, made and installed, which does seem a bit of a length of time to have the building secured. Yeah.
They said that they're increasing the council tax. Shouldn't parking be included in the council tax? Everyone should pay for parking in the council tax.
Sorry, can you repeat that question again, please?
Shouldn't paying for parking be included in the council tax? Because they said the increase in the council tax this year for Band D residents.
Okay, I think what she's saying is should, you understood? Okay, about parking and council tax working hand in hand.
So, well, council tax is separate and parking is separate, so they're not part of the same charges. It depends where the property is, and it depends if you have an estate parking or you're actually subject to CPZ for street parking. So I do not believe that the parking is part of the council tax.
Thank you. The gentleman at the back.
The last last council's climate change emergency plan envisaged spending £360 million pulling out the gas boilers from across the estate, which comprises 30,000 dwellings, I think. So that would be a cost of £12,000 a dwelling. Is that plan still going ahead?
I mean, I'm not, I have to go and seek more advice in regards to the plan which you've discussed, in which we can get your details and come back to you on your question. But I am aware that we have a program in regards to changing of the boilers. We do change the boilers when their life comes to an end, and I think the residents who are subject to changes of their boiler, they are contacted and appointments are made to change the boilers. But I can come back in regards to the...
Well, £360 million seems quite toppy.
Yeah, so it looks like parking is an issue, but the gentleman in red first. I see your hands. It's fine, we'll get to you. The gentleman in red, was it? Or the...
Please don't assume that everyone has a car.
Oh, thank you. Am I turned on? Yes. As one of your council tenants, I'm wondering if you are actually going to be consulting us on any of these changes that you want to bring about, because some of the ideas that you may have may not actually suit the residents, and there may be things like adaptations that need to be made or issues that are involved which you need to know about long before you go into planning or costing. Will you be consulting?
Hi, my name's Miss Kerry Dunlavey. I think I've been working with you, Ishmael, and Jack. Now, what I want to know is, I come from an over 55s property in Bolton Road. Now, I've had so many inspectors round my property stating what they're going to do. They're currently in my property, and they're not doing what they said they were going to do in September. Now, can you answer me why?
Okay, so I will answer the first question. In regards to any changes, please do feel free to contact us with your suggestion, but also come and join Miguel on the estate inspection where these proposals are made. If you're referring to general, if you're referring to individual properties, adaptation or anything like that, again, bring it to us and we can look into it. And we do encourage all residents to join us when we do have walkabouts, when we have a estate inspection. We have lots of councillors coming along, joining us, bringing their ideas and putting forward whatever the residents bring to them. So yes, you... Okay, yeah.
Can we speak to the microphone? Now, can we be brief because we're running out of time and speak to the microphone?
So before we make any changes, we would consult with residents, especially where there is a significant outlay. We would have to consult, but prior to making any changes, even if it's a small cost, we would ensure that we communicate this to all residents, just like the bin changes. We've given sufficient notice that the works have been carried out. This was a health and safety requirement, so we have to go ahead with the changes, but we still took feedback on board in terms of locations and things like that.
Okay.
Just to get back to Kerry, I'm Ibrahim. It's nice to put a face to the name. I am aware of your issues. Obviously, I know that obviously some of the repairs that obviously you was told at the start haven't matched what our repairs team were then going to do. I have obviously been in communication with you and Councillor Jack Elmsley. We have aligned those repair works more specific, those repair works are more aligned to what you was initially told. We are almost there, but what I say is please do speak to me at the end and I'll give you a bigger update then.
Thank you. We'll take one more question in the back and then we'll get to a close here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Humphrey Coleman. Just echoing some of the sentiments that have been mentioned already in relation to how slow the repair function is within the council. I've had to do a dehumidifier in my property for 32 days. And I spoke to my estate manager to ask her who would be responsible for covering this cost. And it's taken me about 7 or 8 emails to determine who will pay for this cost for the dehumidifier. So my question is, why is there, with so many properties, I'm assuming, taking a dehumidifier within their property to resolve their damp issue, why isn't there a policy in place to ensure that tenants are compensated for the cost in which that dehumidifier is going to cost while it's in their property, as opposed to putting the emphasis on the tenant to pay for that dehumidifier? And in my case, it was in my property 32 days, which is an excessive amount of money. Why isn't there a policy already in place when a dehumidifier is accepted into a tenant's property? Why isn't there something in place straight away to say, right, we're going to compensate you for this amount because it's drawing on their electricity? I don't understand why that's the case.
Yeah, I hear your point. Yeah, can we respond to that, please?
Thank you for bringing this up. I think I am well aware of the case, and I cannot discuss the case more broadly because it's directly to your own property and your case. But in general, we are reviewing our processes and we are reviewing our policies, taking in consideration the issue of the humidifier, which are installed with some of our properties. And we do offer a compensation for that, but that has to be agreed. So I take on board your point in regards to our policies, but it's currently been looked at.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen, we're really running out of time. Okay, go ahead, very briefly.
Hello, just imagine, it seems that everyone's got an issue with their housing, and I just want to point out that everybody has the right to raise their complaint to the Housing Ombudsman, who has the authority to issue compensation when Hounslow don't do their jobs properly. So don't forget, you can go through that route, everyone.
Very good point. Thank you very much. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a question about leaseholders. Which of you looks after leaseholders in Chiswick?
We manage in the estate, so we broadly manage the leaseholders, but the leases in particular is managed by the leasehold team, which currently is not here, but could be arranged to attend another forum. But if you have a question which we can answer, we will take.
What provision do you make for the legal costs? What provision does the Housing Department make for repaying the legal costs of leaseholders who are forced to use their solicitors to get justice from the department?
Yeah, I will take this on and I will pass it to the leasehold department to answer.
Why then does the Housing Department place in a joint property, leaseholders and tenants, people who are unsuitable in the sense of being single and difficult in family leased properties? And what is the criteria for placing someone who has a history of mental illness and great difficulty and needs to be looked after in a properly cared circumstance? What is the criteria for putting someone into a family property?
Okay, I will not be able to comment in terms of criteria. That's been assessed by our location team, and we have to be looking fairly and transparent across. But in regards to, and again, how we house people is not down to the housing. We manage tenancies. We not necessarily manage the allocation process.
And are you aware of how much the total of the housing revenue account stands at as at March the 1st?
I'm not going to be able to answer that.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I think those questions need to be answered by another officer on that one. I just want to say real thank you, Miguel, Ibrahim, and Oksana for coming forward and presenting for us. So hopefully you come back again. That was really good. So a round of applause for you. Just to say that estate improvement is a vital part of looking after our residents, especially the antisocial behavior management of that, and working in coherent with the police to make sure that Chiswick is safer. So the work that Oksana, that Ibrahim, and Miguel do is really important and is all part of the whole keeping Chiswick safe for all of us. So I'm going to end that there because we're just running slightly behind time. But if you have any other questions on estates, then please, there is a form on your chair that you can fill in with an email address, and we will respond to you directly. There are officers around the room who can take those questions. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 4, and that's the foster caring unit. The presentation, the following publication of the Independent Review of Childcare in England in May 2022, government have released their strategy to form children's and social care stable homes built on love. I was a part of that conversation before the publication. I welcome the £25 million government investment into the retention and recruitment of foster carers over the next 2 years. I also welcome the announcement last month that the government put, which was made a historic decision to apply an above inflationary increase of 12.43% of allowances for foster carers. So I would like to invite Sonia Mark and from the team of London Borough of Hounslow, and Carol Powers, who is also here, whom I know very well, as one of our foster carers, to present this item to us, and hopefully we get some inquiries off the back of this.
Okay, good evening. My name is Sonia Mark and I'm the fostering team manager. It's more about wanting to talk to you, residents of Hounslow, tell you a bit about the children who are fostered in the borough of Hounslow, and really more around recruitment. So it's more about you thinking about fostering and changing a child's life. So my first slide, please. So we are part of the corporate parenting department, and as I said, I manage the fostering team. I've been fortunate along today to bring along another foster carer whose name is Carol, and Carol, welcome and thank you. And she will talk a bit about her experience of fostering for Hounslow. So I'm mindful of time, not sure how much I've got. So why is foster care needed? So children who need foster placements are in the care of London Borough of Hounslow. And there's a variety of reasons why children are placed in a local authority care. So some of our children are in local authority care based on legal orders, so court orders, where the court has decided that the parent is unable to provide appropriate and nurturing care, and that child needs an alternative home environment. And what happens in that situation is that the local authority shares parental care with the birth parent or the birth family. Some of our children, for example, who are aged 16 and 17, they can agree to approach the local authority if they wish to be placed in care for themselves. So, for example, there might be a child who is experienced abuse or is really having challenges being cared for by their birth family and have chosen actually they would prefer to be in the care of the local authority. The foster service provides foster care for children and young people, as I said, who are cared for by Hounslow. So we have short-term foster carers, we have long-term foster carers, and we have carers who will offer respite. So foster care is for children who range from the age of 0 to 18. So who can foster? So the main criteria is having a spare room. So foster children are unable to share a room with your own birth children, so you need a spare room. If you're wanting to foster a baby, so 0 to 2, so a child up to 0 to 2 can share a room with the foster family. But 3+, they have to have their own bedroom. You have to be permanent or long-term resident in the UK. You can own a property or you can actually be renting. You can be working, you can be unemployed, you could be receiving state benefits. What we do ask is that you live within the borough or local area, because most of our children actually live in the borough of Hounslow. So their families are in the borough of Hounslow, their schools are in the borough of Hounslow, so universal services like GPs, dentists will be in the borough of Hounslow. So just for continuity, we prefer our children to be cared for by families like yourself who live in the borough of Hounslow. And I think one of the main things I think which is really essential for fostering is what I call them the empty nesters. A lot of us have children who have gone on to university or adult children who have left home. And we have a couple of carers who, you know, they've decided that since their children have left home, they've actually got a love in their hearts, space in their life to actually offer a home to a vulnerable child. The only offence, so any criminal convictions against children, then the applicants would not be able to apply. So who are the looked after children? As I said, they range from babies to teenagers to single children. We have a cohort of siblings who need to be placed together. And some children have additional needs, special needs or special abilities or learning needs. They'll come from different backgrounds. So in terms of the Borough of Hounslow, you can imagine the diversity of the community, and that is reflected in the diversity of children that need fostering for Hounslow. I wanted to give you a bit of context. Just, you might not really know this, but in terms of Hounslow, there's currently 361 looked after children under the age of 18 actually living in Hounslow. With majority of our children are actually the upper age range who need to be fostered. So if you can see, our 16 to 17-year-olds, out of that 361, 207 of them actually are from that 16 to 17-year-old age group. 10 to 15-year-olds makes up 81, 5 to 9-year-olds makes up 33, and 0 to 4-year-olds, 40. 170 of that 361 are currently in fostering or adoptive placements. So, for example, pre-adoptive placements means where the court's decided that actually that child needs a forever family that will raise them to their majority, that will bring them up. The pre-adoptive children tend to be from 0 to around 5. So if they're older than 5+, they tend to be placed for long-term fostering. We also have fostering, which is family and friends. So, for example, sometimes a child might need to be fostered and a family friend comes forward to foster the child. So that's another arrangement, and we have 7. We have long-term fostering. That tends to be where you have a short-term foster carer who's decided actually they want this child to remain in their family, and the care plan for that child is to find a forever family. So many of our short-term foster carers actually embrace the child into their home, and that child becomes a part of their family up until their adult life. We have foster children where you have foster carers gone into the weddings, births of their children. You talk about that yourself, Carol. So, and all significant events, they become a part of their family unit. And short-term foster placements, we have 100 children in short-term foster placements, a lot of children. It might be quite interesting, not knowing that actually within your borough that you live in, there's currently 361 children in foster placements. So recruitment. My team, the fostering team, are continuously recruiting for foster carers. So hence we've come to a marketplace today. We're across the community. If you look in Hounslow High Street, you'll see posters like this one here. My foster mum showed me love and taught me how to be the best mother to my child. She's an ex-foster child. So you'll see all the posters in the borough. We also are on Facebook. And you see what our link is, www.facebook.com, Hounslow Council. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We run information sessions. And also, just to plug that there's going to be the Fostering Fortnight on the 9th of May, 2023 to the 21st of May. This is a national, you'll see a lot of publications and adverts and promotion for fostering during the Fostering Fortnight. Why come to Hounslow? So, I might be biased, but I think Hounslow has competitive fostering rates. And what I mean by competitive fostering rates, I mean compared to our other counterparts. So that might be Brent, Hammersmith and Fulham, Ealing. So we actually pay competitive rates. 24-hour advice support for our foster carers. That includes a therapeutic psychotherapist who helps you with your placements, supporting you with the children in placements. You'll be allocated a supervising social worker, and that's your social worker that will come and visit you for 6 weekly to talk to you about any of the placements or any challenges and support and advice. Hounslow reimburse council tax when a child's in placement. So if you've got a child in placement, we pay the council tax. You'll be part of the fostering network who we subscribe to. Ongoing training and development, 365 for the year. Regular monthly support groups with other foster carers, and lots of forums where you'll meet other foster carers. We also run forums for ex-care leavers, so you'll come into contact with ex-care leavers. Your training will be part of alongside ex-care leavers, because it's useful to have ex-care leavers because they've actually experienced fostering, and they talk to you to say, well, this was my experience, this is what worked, and this is what I think could have worked better. So we work alongside the children who are in care. We have sons and daughters groups, sons and daughters of foster carers. So we put on celebrations for them and activities for sons and daughters. We have an annual Foster Carers Fun Day, Foster Carers Annual Award Ceremony. We had it in Chiswick Hotel, 3-course meal, dressed, all the glad rags on. And that was really a really good event, and that's a yearly event. And then we also give free Merling and swing passes. We're also looking at giving all our foster carers free leisure passes. So that's part of the incentive for Hounslow. Just wanted to talk this bit. I sort of got this from one of our foster carers. Her name was Helen. And she said, I have always wanted to foster. it was at the back of my mind during my career in midwifery. So once I took early retirement at 61, it was with this fostering in mind. So I still had the health and the energy. She lives in Chiswick, within the boundaries of Hounslow. So when the time came, she chose to move forward with the local authority, which is Hounslow. There are always adverts around, so I simply rang them up as it seemed easier. And I did not really want to go with a private agency. The process was easy, just a simple online form, and after an initial chat, we moved forward quickly. So in terms of the process, what happens if you are interested, you'd have a social worker who comes and visits you to talk about your individual circumstance. And that meeting is more about, is fostering for you? Is it the right time for you? And what can you offer and what can we offer you? So it's a two-way process. This carer, she mainly looks after our under fives. She has 2 grown-up children, you can see, and she talks about having the experience of raising her own children, and she thinks it isn't actually a prerequisite to have raised your own children, but we'd like you to have some kind of caring experience. It might be with extended family members, it could be with grandchildren, it could be with your own children. She said the fostering team have prepared and supported me throughout the placements, and I have felt very supported. The bit I'd like to say, what she says is, she said that fostering is high on the list of the best things I have ever done. It was such a big decision as a midwife. You make a bit of a difference, but to lots of people's lives. Making a difference to children's lives, and that is what really invests that she wants. And I think I spoke to one of our care leavers, and it actually quite touched my heart what she said. She said, my foster mum showed me love and taught me how to be the best mother to my child. So in spite of her own experience, when she became her mum herself, the foster mother or parent was able to help her to be the mum that she wanted to be for her child. I want to introduce you to Carol. Carol's one of our foster carers. She's been a foster carer for 5 years now, and she's looked after our younger children. She likes your littlies, you call them, your littlies. And she does sibling groups as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about your experience, Carol?
Thank you, Sonia. I have to confess I do prefer the littlies. But having said that, I have had 11, 12 and 13-year-olds as well. They are a challenge. You would expect them to be a challenge. Any 11, 12 and 13-year-old is a challenge, no matter what the situation. But given where these young people are coming from, you would expect to have some fun with them. It's a difficult thing to do. I won't say it's an easy ride that you're taking if you decide to do it. But the rewards are way outride the challenges and the difficulties. When you see the first smile, or you see that first cuddle, or that first positive reaction from something that they've done, and that you hope that you've been a part of helping them to get to that point, then that's the most incredible feeling you could ever get. Helen, who you've just heard the quote from, we are buddy carers. So we get together, so you're never on your own. And you'll often see us trolling around in Chiswick, the two of us, with prams and whatever. And if you do, give us a shout. We'd love to talk to you. But you will find us at numerous toddler groups when we've both got little ones, and in the park and all sorts of other places where we go together. The decision for me was Hounslow, I have to say, because I'd already adopted a child through Hounslow, and he'd reached an age where I was in an empty nest. He's still at home, having said that, but it's a kind of empty nest. It's a hotel now. But that made me want to be there for more children, and he'd obviously shared his foster experiences, which weren't good. And so for me to work with Hounslow was where I wanted to be. And they have been incredible. The support through starting and training and quelling your fears about what you're about to do is incredible. The training is great. There's lots of opportunities to question everything, to really think about what you're doing. And the support is amazing. You have your own supervising social worker. She's always on the end of the phone, thankfully, and you can give her a call, and if she's not, there's always another social worker there when something happens. So if your child decides to go off for a walk for a while and you think, oh, where have they gone? You can phone up and say, you know, What's my best step? What do I do? And they'll give you some support and advice on what to do. But I think all those difficult things far outweigh the opportunities you get to see that child change, to see the difference you're making and the other people around you. The people you get to work with is great, and there's no better excuse to be allowed to go to the farms, see the latest Disney movie, or whatever else fun that they might bring into your life. But yeah, if you're thinking of it, or you know other people who are thinking about it, do talk to Sonia or the team. I won't, as I said, I won't confess to it being a doddle and all being fun. There are those nights when you'll go to bed and think, I can't do this anymore. Help. As long as you've got good friends around you, you'll get through it, but you'll see that child change. And that's the miracle. So if you think you can, talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That meant a lot, hearing it. And Councillor McGregor.
Thank you very much for that brilliant presentation and for that tribute to the work you're doing. Splendid stuff. I want to ask a question about education. I understand that foster children who are old enough to go to school are given a priority. That means they can usually go to the school of their first choice, which is obviously going to be a local school to make things easy for the foster parents. That is the case, you're confirming that. Have you been contacted by the Education Department to allow sons and daughters, natural sons and daughters in the same household, to share that priority? Because I have two cases at the moment where you have a foster child going to school in that direction and two other children going to school in that direction, and they all need to be taken to school. And I want to change that. Have you heard anything yet from the Education Department? Because I've actually been pressing them to do that.
Okay. I think sometimes you have to consider whether that placement is a short-term placement and the plan is for that child to move or to remain in the placement. So for example, if that child's there and they're there as a long-term placement, then those kind of negotiations can be made. So it depends whether the placement is short-term or whether it's long-term, a stable placement. And we do work very close with Virtual School, for example. No names, Kate Elliott. So we work very closely with the schools. So actually there is that crossover, there is those discussions that you can have, but it's more about if the placement's a permanent placement for that foster child. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gill, and then I would like to go to the audience if they have some questions for us, or we may have some questions for you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Sonia, can you hear me? Sonia, we were talking earlier about fostering, which is normally basically white-dominated community. So how do you encourage the ethnic minorities who do not consider fostering at all? I know you go to the mosques, the gurdwaras and things like that, but do you actually have any success in success stories by doing that? Or how do you go about encouraging more? I know you've got those bags, which I've taken to circulate to, and if anybody wants to promote fostering, there are bags which you can come and collect. So when you go shopping, it's an advert for fostering, so which is quite a good thing, which I'm going to do anyway. So my question is, how do you go about encouraging ethnic minorities?
So what we do at the moment is that we'll approach the mosques and the temples and actually have a contact person who will actually come along to sessions like these or our information sessions. They're part of our campaign, fostering campaigns, so that we have a contact person who has an established relationship with that community. We find that's more successful when they're familiar with somebody who actually is from their community to actually engage with them. And then they help them through, because very often we use interpreters, and they will help them through the whole process. So a couple of our carers have been achieved through that process, and we'll help them through the whole process of the fostering application. But yes, it is. It is a challenge. So, for example, we went to, last year we went to a Turkish festival. And one of the things we noticed was that many communities have very large families and young families. So actually they don't have the space in their home to care for foster children. And they actually would like to foster, but are unable to. Some communities will say, for example, in the Muslim faith, fostering isn't something that's acknowledged, that isn't something that they do. So it's more of an informal arrangement. So there are barriers that we as a fostering team are trying to think about how we can tap into these other communities. Hounslow, we have approximately round about 87 carers, and actually from a variety of backgrounds, and they actually reflect community of Hounslow. So we have carers across diversities in terms of ethnicities, gender. So we'll have couples who are in same gender relationships, we'll have couples who are married, couples who are single, couples who are Asian, Black Caribbean, African, white European, white British. So Hounslow actually are quite successful in terms of recruiting foster carers. But I think the plug I want to say tonight is that, as you can see, the amount of children in the borough of Hounslow itself, where we need to recruit foster carers who can look after Hounslow children. Yeah, it's about Hounslow children. So thinking about, you know, you might have thought or not even thought about fostering before. Just let me sow that seed. Actually, maybe I could. Maybe I could look after a foster child. Maybe I could open my home. You might think that you can't, but actually maybe you can. So I'd like to sow that seed to you all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sonia. I'm the Chair. Sonia, thank you so much. And
if anyone wants one of these shopping bags, they're available here. They're free of charge, so it will also promote fostering. Thank you.
So I take on point I take to heart what you said about different ethnicities of fostering, and I've experienced actually being fostered by all those ethnicities and single-parent households. I was fostered by an Asian lady, for example, an Afro-Caribbean lady, an American lady, and a couple from Wales. So it is a reflection of society that we live in, that all those different demographics are fulfilled. But the scariest thing, I think, for us to take away here today is the fact that we have 361 children in care, and yet we only managed to recruit one foster parent last year. Just one. We also got this...
4 last year.
4? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's gone up. That's brilliant. 4 is good. 4 is good, but it's still not good enough. We've also got the current things going on with the immigration issue, and we have unaccompanied minors who need fostering, who need placements. And that's something that I think we need to, as a society, really think long and hard about how we look after these children who need our care. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today, and that's why I really want to thank you for coming forward with that. But 361 looked after children, and 4 recruitment is just not good enough, I don't think. But if you can do anything today, is maybe it's not you that's going to be a foster parent, but share it with a neighbor, share it with someone that you know, someone's close to you, who may potentially come forward. The cost of private fostering is astronomical, and that's why the council is spending so much of its income or its money on fostering, because it costs an astonishing amount to go private, whereas it would be much, much easier on our coffers if we were able to do it in-house.
Could I also say, more importantly, is that when we have to use an independent fostering agency, what that means is that Hounslow child has to move away from the continuity of school, of birth family, because very often these placements are outside of the borough of Hounslow. It could be the other side of London, it could be in the countryside, which is why we wanted to recruit and retain Hounslow carers so our children can remain in Hounslow.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you so much, Carol. We'll now move on to agenda item 5, is the open forum, and I've not been notified of any open forum items in advance, but it is now an opportunity for residents to raise issues and concerns if they wish, and if they can ask questions directly to councillors and to office, if they have any officers still around as well. Let's make this as open as possible. There's no, hopefully there'll be no shouting down of anybody, but we want to hear all the views on both sides of any debate, that on any topic that comes up. So just as a guide in our agenda items, we did say that issues such as traffic and transport, ULEZ and the flood strategy are just the umbrella to get us in conversation, but it's not exclusive to just those 3 items. So I see a hand up in the audience. The gentleman there first. Can we start with him?
Hi, good evening. This is a traffic and road management issue. I live on Thames Road. In the 3 years since the traffic scheme was introduced, the 3 traffic schemes that impact me were introduced on that road. It's essentially become a no-go area for minicab drivers. They will simply not come into the road. In 3 years, I would like to think you would have worked with the major platforms, Uber, Bolt, Free Now, to have resolved this matter in much the same way that it's clearly resolved on behalf of the black cab trade, but obviously they are twice as expensive. It's a major, major problem. There's people I know besides myself with mobility issues. It's outrageous. It's become a no-go zone, and there is literally no movement from the council, as far as I can tell, to proactively bring the minicab riders back into the road. The minicab riders are always being told, oh, if they can come for access, therefore they can appeal. Well, actually, what minicab driver is going to spend their life appealing tickets? It doesn't work that way. They have to be exempted before they come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I go to Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Croft?
Just to echo, I actually live in that area too, so I totally get what you are saying. I can remember a long conversation with a plumber when all the power went out to my house very late at night, and he was adamant he couldn't drive down the road. It does say for access, so minicabs can come in. When we raised it with officers, they said, well, they can come in. But the point is, as you said, 3 years after the scheme came in, they didn't seem to know that. It's not just minicabs, it's also, say, emergency services, plumbers, electricians. There are issues, carers, obviously. There are issues also with delivery vehicles of various shapes and sorts. And I say that the line will be, the sign says access only. So if you're driving into someone's house to drop things off, to drop off electrician, drop off your shopping, all the rest of it, that is allowed. But you're right, for some reason, when people see that sign, they don't twig. And I think that conversation really should have been had over the last 3 or 4 years with all those platforms you mentioned. As I drive home occasionally, mainly public transport person, but Google tries to get me to go very strange ways to get home. It just avoids my area totally. I think this is a wider issue. I say I don't want to have another big long debate tonight and get all cross and angry about transport issues, but I think just if I can just piggyback on the point, very valid point you make, and councillors have made for many years, there's a consultation, or there's a decision about to be made on another aspect, which is the sort of Burlington, outside my ward, but still within the Grove Park area, which is the sort of Burlington Road, Staveley Garden bit. And all I would say is that residents just need to be aware of what is proposed and to make your views known. So obviously the schemes came in, didn't they, to stop the so-called rat running people driving through our neighbourhood. What is proposed, and I say look online, find the decision, speak to your councillors, is that, I don't know what the logic is, but it's to open up Burlington Burlington Lane, apart from during school hours, a couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours in the afternoon. So again, that rat running that we used to have could perhaps come back. So I think there's a lot of issues that we need to have a think about. But I would just echo totally your points about Thames Road and the Strand on the Green area. And again, when I talked to, I remember canvassing, he was a young chap. I've actually known him since he was about this big, and he used to go to the local school with my son. He's a lot bigger now. And he was saying that, again, a lot of his friends find it very difficult to come back into the area at night. And talking about young girls, 1920s, out socialising as you should be at that age. And taxi drivers just won't come into the area. Again, I know the sign says access only. I know they're totally allowed to. They won't get a ticket. And this is even when the schemes are in operation. But they see that sign, as you say, they've been stung many times before all over London. And they're just not taking the risk because they're not particularly living on large amounts of money anyway, probably on minimum wage. So the risk isn't worth it. And all our negotiation and trying to cajole and encourage, with that electrician I mentioned, I had it on my phone saying, well, if you look at that, trying to show him on, do a FaceTime thing. If you look at that, you can see you are allowed. But he wasn't going to accept it from me. Why would he? Who do I think I am? So I'm waffling slightly, but yeah, just totally endorse and echo what you have said. And that access issue has to be addressed. Again, I know people can come into the area and they can park and they can use the pubs, although there are time restrictions. But people don't feel they can do that. And I don't know how you get that across to them. So you can park outside Annie's and the pubs and the rest of it. And obviously the designated drivers that we all would use would want to do that. But they're just not doing it. And all those pubs and restaurants are reporting that the trade has gone down. And again, it's not good enough for the council just to say, yeah, but they can, because they're not, because they don't feel able to, because they've heard all the stories of people getting tickets left, right and centre who don't deserve them and should never have got them. So I think we just have to keep raising those points. And I say it's not as though the powers that be haven't heard it. And I'm sure all ward councillors from all bits of Grove Park have made these and similar points ad nauseum since these blasted schemes started a few years ago.
Thank you. Councillor Croft.
Thank you. I'm apologising because I've been to the dentist and so my mouth has only just started to unnumb. So if I lisp, I'm really sorry. I think that the traffic schemes could have certainly been communicated a little better, and I think there is definitely confusion. I definitely think there is confusion amongst residents, amongst taxi drivers, amongst businesses about where the access is and when they can access things. I've spoken to the lead member who is keen and happy to ensure that whenever the decision is made about the rest of the scheme, because that isn't finalised yet, but when that is made, that we can do a proper mail shoot for the whole area so that everybody has very clear guidance of who can enter and when they can enter, but also wider to businesses, to people further afield, to taxi companies, so that we can get away from the issues that have been caused with taxis not coming in. So the council are committed to doing that. So, sorry.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, what provision is there for the people who are on the streets? I mean, you walk past Town and Green Tube, there was a woman, young woman, well, maybe in her 30s, just when I came. I mean, it's a pitiful sight. She said she slept on the green last night, and she was sitting there freezing. They don't seem to know what they can do, and I certainly don't, so if there's an answer, please can we hear it?
Let me, firstly, there is, for example, the cost of living marketplace, a solution that we talked about, which is on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. at Duke's Meadow Community Centre, is a sort of place where you can drop in, or if you know of anyone who is of that description, where you can drop in and seek advice. But also we've got support in Hounslow Council itself, where if, for example, that person you've mentioned is homeless, there is a helpline for them to seek access. We've also got local faith groups that are very active in promoting coffee mornings and so on. So there is so many different facilities, but the best thing you can do is maybe take one of our cards today, and if you do see that person, maybe put him in touch with one of the councillors. But I'll let Councillor Giles just respond to that quickly.
Thank you, Chair. I've literally just gone to Google, typed in homeless emergency number, and it takes you straight to the council's website, and it's all part of the homelessness prevention. There are various organisations that are involved, but there are numbers that you can call in hours as well as out of hours. There is also a link there to the nearest shelter. And of course, during extreme weather conditions, such as freezing. And Oksana, I think, can probably help a little bit more with this. She's got her hand up as well.
We do have a rough sleeping team who work very actively with the rough sleepers and help them out to find shelter and be housed. And like Councillor Gill said, our homelessness prevention team are very active in working in trying to help the rough sleepers and people who are on the street.
Can we go back to the lady just to clarify? Could you give her the microphone again, please?
Sorry, that's a lot of information. I forgot my specs, so I couldn't write it all down. But so who can I talk to so that I can just get this thing in one place and... Oh, just any of you, okay.
We'll give you, give you a business card. Sorry, sorry, 1 second. Sorry, can you wait? Can you wait? Can you wait? Thank you, thank you. Councillor Bidoff first, then the gentleman at the back. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very worrying, isn't it? It upsets everybody as we walk past people who are sleeping on the streets, particularly after the pandemic when the government scheme of everyone in got everyone in, but they weren't then able to stay. The emergency accommodation hasn't lasted. If they are, all the advice is don't give them money, give money to the charities that they can then be supported by, but it's very hard to resist that. If you see them sleeping and literally not moving at night, then report them to StreetLink, which is a London-wide scheme for helping people who are homeless and sleeping on the streets, and they will visit the person in the spot that they are. You have to give the location. StreetLink is an app which you can download on your phones. I'm afraid it's no use if you haven't got a smartphone, you can do it online as well. Just report where they are. During the day, there is this marketplace that they can go along to, as Ron has said, but there is also a list on the council website of warm spaces that are open at the current moment during the cold weather. And sometimes it's libraries, sometimes it's other sorts of institutions, it's churches, voluntary, either through the council's links or of their own, so they can go along and sit in a warm space. And in some of them, there's usually free tea or coffee, and some of them will give free food. There's also a separate list of places you can get free food, which I've got if nobody else has, so I can provide that if you'd like to call me, email me. But it is very, very difficult. What I would also add, and people don't like to hear this, is that actually they do know where they can get help. There's a massive network amongst homeless people. They know where the free food is. They know where the shelters are. They are living the life that they've chosen, and I know it's very difficult to accept that because we don't want them necessarily to live like that, but there is a very strong presence on the streets and a sort of community amongst them where they share information. I don't want to sound complacent, but that is often the case. But I hope I've given you some places to go. StreetLink if they're asleep at night, and look for warm spaces and get in touch with the homelessness unit through a counsellor or through Oksana.
Again, please. Thank you.
Hello, it's me now. That's nice. Yeah, I'm Piers Corbyn from the ULEZ Can't Pay, Won't Pay campaign. And I used to live in Turnham Green and drive through it often. And I want to ask the councillors, when are they going to actually accept? There's massive opposition to this stuff, because the ULEZ is destroying local businesses. It's taking away a freedom to travel, especially of low-income groups. It's increasing pollution because people drive greater distances to avoid, and it's bringing surveillance cameras, which will be used for all sorts of things. So when are you actually going to support the people rather than just your servile support for the worst mayor London has ever had? And specifically, one, will you refuse the ULEZ cameras? Two, will you support people like me who drive at will and do not pay and currently owe £44,000 to ULEZ because the whole scheme is illegal? And thirdly, will you support a court case along with other boroughs against the conman Khan? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, response? Councillor Thompson, please.
Just ever so quickly, if you look at the Hounslow Council YouTube link, at the last Borough Council, we made the Conservative side made its views very clear about the expansion. We weren't talking about what we have now. We were talking about the expansion and the cost and the impact, and made several of the points that the gentleman made. So I think we're not disagreeing with you. And obviously, I think it's appropriate that we do have a comment, because obviously our Chiswick wards, since the boundary changes, now do cover the area where the expansion is going to be. Bits of what many of us think of as Brentford actually do now fall into Chiswick Gunnersbury and Chiswick Riverside. So I think we're allowed to have a view on it. And our view is public record. That's all I want to say on that. You know.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. That's a good response. I mean, Councillor, one local councillor, you've raised a letter that you saw from Hounslow Council leader, cabinet leader. Do you mind just exploring a little bit on that, please? It may help shed light to the gentleman's question.
To be honest, Chair, I'm a bit uneasy talking to Piers Corbyn about a lot of stuff. He's got some pretty dodgy views on vaccines and COVID, and so I'm not sure I'm gonna respond to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I want to hear everybody, and I'm glad we have heard what. Okay. No, look. Okay, listen up. Okay. Look. Before I go back to the questions, before we go back to the questions, let's just ask for standing orders to be.
Yeah. I'm proposing to extend the meeting by 15 minutes or half an hour. So councillors, please decide how long. A half an hour? Okay, half an hour then. Thank you.
Just to go back to that, we, as a Conservative group, as Councillor Thompson said, we wanted the ULEZ to be suspended, especially with the cost of living crisis in midst. So we wanted that to be not to be a triple whammy: council tax, ULEZ, and rents. We didn't want that to be the case, but unfortunately we were voted out on that particular occasion. But I want to take a question from the gentleman next to Miss Mayorkas there. Mrs. Mayorkas.
Am I on? I'm not on yet. All right, I'll just speak up then. I'd just like to hear whether the councillors will support the ULEZ being expanded to the rest of London, because in London, 4,000 people a year die prematurely from pollution. Our lifespan as Londoners is a year less than it would be were pollution to be got rid of. And more than half of those deaths, those early deaths, occur in outer London boroughs. So when they brought in the ULEZ in inner London, there was the number of schools that were in unacceptably polluted areas fell by 97%. So it works. There is not a single London borough that meets World Health Organization guidelines for pollution. So how unambitious are we to be slowing this down?
It's too quiet.
Yeah. How unambitious are we that we think that our city can't be clean? And I think there's, I'd really like to hear councillors finding a good reason for subsidising people like him to pollute our air and contribute to the deaths of children and old people in this country.
Okay, sit down, please. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sit. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can we... Councillor Croft.
Just in response to the gentleman's comment, the council is supportive of it. We would call on the government to provide a fuller scrappage scheme to cover people being able to do it, but yeah, as a council we are.
Thank you. Okay, it looks okay. As Conservatives, our GLA members have been fighting on this issue, and we do not think that ULEZ should be expanded. This is just a money-making scheme for Mayor Sadiq Khan, and he is just using this because he has overspent on his budget. It's a triple whammy for our residents. It does not work. We've got flights going into Heathrow. We've got the M25 around us. How far back? Your figures, your facts are fiction. Your facts are fiction. I'm responding to your facts. I have the right to speak. I have the right to speak, and I'm telling you now that your Councillor Khan is interested in raising, Mayor Khan is interested in raising money because he's overspent on his own budget. We'll take the lady at the front.
Hi. There is something I don't know whether the councillors know the answer to this. It is something I would ask Sadiq Khan, were he here. The facts that he comes out with, he talks about 4,000 people dying from air pollution a year. I wonder what these statistics are. I wonder how he knows the method of their death, because if you have a respiratory problem, the doctors, apart from in rare cases, actually don't know where that's come from. So I would like to know what his facts are based on. I'm not saying there isn't air pollution. I'm not saying people don't have respiratory illness, but he's banding this about as a fact, and I wonder if anybody can enlighten me on what these statistics actually apply to. Thank you.
Councillor Todd first. Then.
Can I make some observations, please? I'm following the Grove Park schemes very closely, and during that experiment, lots of air pollution measurement was taken. What's fascinating, and this is not contentious, that part of the A4 that's outside the scheme, someone mentioned St Mary's School in Hogarth, and it's part of the ULEZ, the pollution level has gone up. And measuring traffic is down and pollution is up. So it's nothing to do with ULEZ, that's a fact. Secondly, we've heard what the borough is doing, but sometimes the borough speaks with a forked tongue. There are two things you measure. One's nitrogen dioxide, NO2, and the other thing other people have heard we talk about all the time is PM 2.5. That's the small dust that comes off tyres and brakes. And I've seen it measured on the A4 when we bomb down and stop and all the dust comes out the brakes. That PM 2.5 goes down children's throats and it's lethal. And there must be some correlation between that serious illness and death. I accept that. But in this borough, we've only got two readers, 2.5 readers. So what that tells me that whilst the borough may be interested, and it's It was given £2 million a couple of years ago. It's not spending it and it's not getting the data. Can I have a bit of licence and come back, if I could, to the question on Thames Road? I accept people are nervous. I'm nervous. But you've got to try and put it in context. We're all busy people. And if I say to you, and this is not challenged, the schemes in Hartington and Staveley have led to 80,000 parking tickets being given to people going through barriers. People have appealed, and the invigilator has said the signage is unfair. Okay, not everyone has appealed, but they said the signage is an appeal. They've had an independent audit at the council, and they're going to try and do the signs as soon as possible. Now, that audit's been open for months, and the council have the audacity to say they start doing research as who's getting tickets, and they say it's mainly people who live outside. But if you go down those two streets, you turn left, there's only one sign on the high road. What do? You've got a U-turn in seconds. My wife takes my dog for walking in Chiswick Park. One day the A4 was shut and you can use the scheme, then you can't. I know people who've got 7 or 8 PCNs. If you go through that barrier, you don't get the ticket for a week or a fortnight after. And that's serious money for a lot of people. So what that policy is, right or wrong, has engendered is an absolute fear of traffic schemes. The tragedy is with the new scheme is there's no doubt about it that the volume of traffic, the rat runners going through Grove Park, have materially decreased. But you've got to say at what cost. You simply can't have 5 or 6 separate traffic schemes in a small area. And the final point I've only discovered today, we negotiated after the first scheme for people from Duke's Meadows to go through Grove Park. They got permits. I now find the council is charging £70 to each carer who wants to go through that area. Now, if there is a group of people who need every possible assistance, Chiswick, you know, there's lots and lots of elderly people who want treatment, who want to go to the hospital, to the doctors, or indeed the chemist at Chiswick. And I find it's that small combination of things which, quite frankly, makes life intolerable, Chair. Thanks very much.
The gentleman first, then the lady.
Thank you. I just wanted to firstly draw the council and local residents' attention to the changes that the owner of the Rocks Lane Community Sports Facility had proposed and was planning to proceed with without planning permission. In summary, last Friday, certain of the staff at Rocks Lane, in quite a bit of detail, to the extent that it was clear that these were firm and concrete plans that the owner proposed, flagged that the owner was planning to bulldoze some of the netball and football pitches and replace them with yet more paddle courts. And furthermore, that was something that he was planning to do without a planning submission, let alone planning approval. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a real estate expert, but what I do know is that that facility is really important to local residents, to local children, and particularly to the schools. It's one of the reasons why many people love living in the area, and certainly it's been a big part of our family and our school for the last 10 years. I've been really, really pleased since an email chain began on Saturday, and Councillor Bidhoff, you replied to me very kindly today, others have as well. It appears that the owner has now retracted what he has said, which is nice. I won't lie, it's very difficult to take that at face value. And I'd just like to let everybody know, not only have the staff, many of whom are local residents, acted with real bravery in flagging these changes to everybody, and I hope that that does not count against them with their employer going forward. But I think the value of that facility to the community is really, really important, and I think we should make every effort as a council to remind TFC Leisure, who are the owner, of the importance of that facility to the community, to children and to the schools. Thank you.
Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you, and I'm glad you saw my email. They do seem to have retracted their wish, if it ever was a wish. It's hard to know, as I know you know. But in the meantime, I have asked for the lease so that we can be absolutely clear about the purpose of Rocks Lane, and if it isn't appropriate, see if something can be done about that. So when I get that, obviously I will share it with the people I've heard from. And there have been some concerns along the way about a slow creep along these premises into sports that perhaps weren't the intention at the beginning. So we'll keep an eye on it. And I'm very glad to have had emails from residents, because if we don't know what the feelings are. And there have been changes before with no objections, so there's nothing we can do. Thank you, though.
Thank you very much. I just briefly want to go back to the ULEZ, I think, issue, but not only that, also the whole question of getting cars off our streets. I'm lucky enough to travel quite a lot, and it is quite remarkable how cities on the continent in Europe, Brussels, Paris, and from what I read in the newspapers, many, many, many other capital cities, have Lille, Liège, have managed to get rid of cars around their city centres. They have done it. They've obviously done it after very careful study of the issue for people who need to get around on a bus or a disability vehicle. But there are cities all over the world that have managed to get rid of cars in their city centres, and the improvement in the quality of life is absolutely immense.
Thank you. Thank you. 1 second. Before we go to that, I think Chiswick is not a city centre; it's a suburb. So let's take that to the Westminster Council, run by Labour, I believe, and let's get rid of those cars at Oxford Street. Okay, the lady in red with the hand up. Thank you.
Yes, it's possible that I may have missed some data, but does the council now have any data that if there are people who would previously have driven a car, if they choose to give up their car, would they prefer to use a bike or use a bus? I mention this because I can see that, for example, emergency vehicles have trouble getting along the road now that there are only 2 narrow lanes. And also, the fact is that buses, which would carry 70 people, take up the amount of space that perhaps 3 cyclists would take up. I absolutely back getting cars off the road, but I would like to have some balance for the public transport as well, please.
Councillor Giles.
So, yes, further investment in public transport is required. This was something that I asked for when we looked at the South Chiswick Livable Neighbourhood Scheme originally. As part of the last consultation to do with the data collection that was done as part of the Staveley Road and Burlington Lane temporary measure, sorry, I had to think of the right phrase there, temporary measure, there was data acquisition done. I don't believe there's been a huge amount of study into modal shift, but as part of the Staveley Road and Burlington Lane temporary measures, data acquisition was made, and I understand that modal shift was minimal in the data that was presented back to us. We haven't seen the slides yet, despite having asked for this. We haven't, despite having asked for this information 3 weeks ago, we still haven't seen the finer details of that particular study. So that's all we have right now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Croft, and we go to the gentleman at the back.
Sorry, just a quick point on that. The council are working with TfL to look at potentially more public transport routes.
Thank you. Still on the environment, but on the increasing flood risk that affects absolutely everything, increase in impermeable surfaces, and the need for sustainable drainage systems. The Hounslow flood team, I'm glad to say, were here earlier, and they told me that the Environment Agency are funding investigations into sustainable drainage in Chiswick and Grove Park, but it's coded red. So that's pretty serious for this forum. Now, I'm glad to say the Hounslow Local Flood Risk Management Strategy, updated every 6 years, is due on the website at any moment. And I'd like to thank the Chair, Democratic Services, and the team on that strategy for their involvement with me so far. And my question of the Chair and Democratic Services is, please can we have the flood strategy here at the next forum?
That's been noted. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you too. Any other questions? Oh, just one comment from Councillor Todd, and we'll take one more question.
I did speak to Mr. Mack before the meeting. The Cabinet published a flood plan either 2 or 3 months ago, done by a company called Matis. I'm very happy to get you a link to that, Mr. Mack, if that would help.
Three more questions and we will wrap up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. In case people are worried about the flood, I just wanted to mention that the guy who was running the flood prevention stall did say that Chiswick was coloured red, just as a guide to which area it was. It didn't mean any sort of danger in case people are worried. But what I actually wanted to do was to come back on what Ron said about the mayor and finance. I don't think the chair should really be making political statements at this sort of meeting. I think he should be holding the floor for a fair debate. But one of the main problems is that in most big cities like New York and Paris, the government funds the public transport system. For example, they get 70% in New York and Paris. In London, they only get around 28%, something like that. So there is a big problem of London transport funding, but it's caused by the government, not the mayor.
Yeah. Just to respond to your comment, I recently went to the Mayor's Question Time at Ealing, which was chaired by Assembly Member Sohata. He was able to make comment. Why can't I? Gentleman at the front.
Yeah, my name is David Giles. Some of you will know me, some of you won't. I just want to make a point of information. For the last 6 months or so, TfL have issued a consultation on the future of Chiswick High Road, and specifically on the changes that have been made to Chiswick High Road over the last couple of years. And of course, the main change is the temporary cycleway, C9. The closing date for that consultation is the 3rd of April. That's something everyone should be aware of, and as many people here should respond as possible, because this is going to be our last chance to have our say. As I see it, there are a number of alternatives. One of them is that it should stay as it is. That would be very unpopular in Chiswick, as we all know. The second alternative is to modify it in some way, and that will be difficult, because it's a very complicated scheme with lots of roads coming in and out of it. And sadly, there have been more accidents involving cyclists since C9 has been built than there was previously. The third alternative, of course, and this has been stood up today in court, in the High Court, because the third alternative is to remove it. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea removed C9 from Kensington High Street. That removal was contested by a group of local people. I'm not sure exactly who they were. And it's gone to a judicial review. And today, Mr. Justice Lane, in the High Court, ruled in favour of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea and said that it was perfectly legal for the borough to remove the cycleway.
Thank you. Okay, can we close?
That means that is a legal alternative that Hounslow Council could consider, taking it away.
Thank you.
And if they take it away, there's one thing they could do. They could convert the cycle lane into a bus lane, because we've got 6 bus routes going down that high road, and an awful lot of the problems are caused by the cycle lane. That's why the buses are taking an hour to get from Hammersmith.
Okay, it's not a
That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Okay. To us. Thank you very much. I'm in charge of the time, Councillor Todd. Can we just calm down a little bit? The lady there.
It's back to flooding. We do have an awful lot of flooded streets in Chiswick, as most of us know. Part of it is caused by the build-up of leaf debris and that sort of thing, and dirt. The roads are seldom cleaned because they're parked up, but parking is seldom suspended, so they can be cleaned. Why can't we go back to having lorries coming in the summer with suckers, or they sort of sumps or whatever, I don't know what they're called. But when I was a child, we used to have lorries going around, clearing the drains, so that when the rains came, the water went down the drains rather than sitting on the surface. Why doesn't Hounslow Council apply themselves to doing that? Because I'm sure it would save a fortune.
Thank you very much. Councillor Giles, just briefly, please.
We can look into that. I have also learnt that a lot of the issues that we have with increased leaf fall is due to the gender of the trees. They're male. So this is something I learnt about last year when I was looking into trees and pollen and blockings and drain blockings, and basically there was a scientist who decided in the 40s that when it came to urban planning, all our trees should be male because they didn't shed so much. However, with increasing concreting of our urban areas and temperatures of our planets increasing, our trees are now producing more pollen and leaves with nowhere for it to go. So like the guy that I learned this from is like basically gone to Google and looking at creating antihistamine environments or allergen-free environments. So it's part of the study, but we'll see what we can do about the plugs.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. And can I go to Councillor Thompson? We've had some really productive conversations here. We've had local police, Hounslow housing, estates, improvements, foster cares, who are still here, bless them. Thank you so much. And an open forum, which has been very, very productive. Councillor Thompson, just last few words from you, please.
Just wanted to say a thanks to the audience, really. We had a wonderful, diverse discussion tonight, and it's never going to be the case that we're going to agree on some of these issues, but it's good that we do have these sorts of forums to express them. And I say that I think this has been far more entertaining and educational and informative than anything you could have watched on Netflix. So I do thank you all. I do thank you all for coming. I think it was great that we actually had a real discussion about social housing in Chiswick. I've been on this sort of body for a long time. I don't remember one of those. That's really good. And I think the take home for me will be the work we do in the fostering team. But I say, can I just thank you for your patience and say we'll do our job better, whatever you think about us, if we do hear from you. So it's great to hear from you. We should hear from you when you have the doors that don't work and all the rest of it. But on these bigger political issues, which after all is why some of us get involved in politics, it would be great to hear your comments, say maybe not in this sort of forum, because these sadly don't meet very often, but do never hesitate to get in touch and share what you think about some of the bigger issues affecting the world we live in. But just say thank you for your time and your contributions. Thank you.
Just getting on to the last little bits, agenda item 6, everyone, minutes of last meeting. Minutes of last meeting? Yeah, Councillor Bidoff.
Yes, please. There's, on page 13, there is a mistake in the 4th paragraph.
Just 1 second. Please leave quietly, and please leave your questions to the officers at the front there if you have any questions. If you filled in your questions, please find the officers. You can see them waving, and they're at the front and the side if you've got questions. Councillor Bidoff, thank you.
Thank you. Just on page 13, the 4th paragraph where it mentions my name, the Cabinet member actually said that it was her ambition to reduce traffic by 50%, rather than that it had been reduced. And I asked her what the starting point in terms of year might be, because we've done no measurements. So it's impossible to know when it would start from.
That's being corrected as we speak. Councillor Bidoff, thank you so much for raising it. And I believe you mentioned before that you have any other business, just two points, yeah.
Thank you, yes. So, okay. It doesn't matter. No, there's no other way of raising them. That's why I just want to record 2 things. I want it in the minutes, just in the minutes. A tracking list. We were going to have a tracking list.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of our meeting. Thank you. Calm yourselves down, councillors. What's going on?